It's sweet. I think I'm gonna fall in love again. I'm gonna have a 6mm. Well, here's something that hasn't seen the light of day for a while. This is a custom Winchester Model 70, chambered for a cartridge that the Winchester Model 70 was never chambered for. It's a 6mm Remington. Now that's like putting cats and dogs in the same bag, isn't it? Well, if you are into 6mm, and right now the 6 Creedmoor is really hot, 6x47, the 6SC, those 6mm are really coming on strong. But back in the mid 20th century, we essentially didn't have any. There was a cartridge around the late 1890s called the 6mm Lee Navy. And that was a surprisingly fast little cartridge. The Navy used it in a straight pull action rifle that never really took off. It was never a civilian item, so it sort of disappeared. The next 6mm cartridge didn't come along until 1955, but then 2 big ones landed, and you're going to know one of these at least, the 243 Winchester. Winchester took the 243 from the 308 cartridge. They just necked that baby down to hold a 24 caliber bullet, .243 is the diameter of that baby, and they were off to the races. Well, Remington must have had spies, or else the other one had spies, but they figured it out, and they also came out that same year with their version of a 243, and they called it the 244 Remington. And that one was built on the brass from a 757 Mauser. So it was a little bit longer than that 308 brass in the 243, held a little bit more powder. The upshot is that the 6mm Remington, which used to be the 244 Remington, I'll explain that in a minute, actually pushes the same bullets as the 243 Winchester, but about, on average, 100 feet per second faster. Here's the problem. When they came out with these rifles, Remington thought that their 6mm would be a woodchuck rifle, a varmint rifle, shooting fairly light bullets from about 70 grains to 90 grains. That was the heaviest they would stabilize. So they put a 1 in 12-inch rifling twist in their barrels. Worked great for those lighter bullets. Winchester went with a 1 in 10 twist on their 243, and then they came out with a 100-grain bullet. And there was something about that 100-grain bullet that stuck with deer hunters. They could not get over the idea of shooting a lighter bullet at deer. Didn't think it was going to work. It works just fine, I can vouch for that. But that little mistake is what cost Remington the race. Even though they had a faster cartridge, fewer people purchased that 244 Remington because they couldn't shoot 100-grain bullets in it. Well, this went on for several years before Remington thought, we probably need to speed up the twist rate on our barrels, putting some bigger bullets, but if we confuse people by doing that, they're going to try shooting the ammunition in their old ones, and this is going to be a problem. They renamed it the 6mm, came out with 100-grain bullet loads for it, and everybody thought it was going to be great, but it was too late. They just came out when Winchester had the advantage. Everyone had gone to that 243 Winchester, and if you were shooting a 24 caliber, that was it. That was your 6mm, not the 6mm Remington. So today, virtually no one chambers new rifles for the 6mm Remington, and now that 6 Creedmoor has come out, I don't think you're ever going to see it again, unfortunately. So I had this one built because I've always had a soft spot for that 6mm Remington. I had one when I was a young man. I got it in an inexpensive little 7.88 Remington rifle. Real inexpensive, but surprisingly accurate. And I took a lot of deer, pronghorn, foxes, and coyotes with that. It was sweet. But I got away from it for several years, and that's why I decided to come up with another one in a custom. Now, the nice thing about custom rifles is you can barrel them to anything you pretty much want. I got a short action Model 70, which they didn't have back in the 50s. But now they do. I got that short action and thought, you know, instead of the same old 243, I'm going with that 6mm Remington. Had them build it for me. This stock was made by Pheasant, but Donnie Jeems made it, and shortly, while he was making that, he switched, and the company was called Show Me Gun Stocks, and he built that beautiful stock out of a piece of Pheasant walnut. It even says Pheasant on the side. And then the action came from Winchester, obviously. It was an action that was lying around extra, needed a little bit of work. Something was wrong with it, but I sent it to a good gunsmith, Lex Webernick at Rifles Inc., and he trued it up and said it was really a little crooked, but he straightened it all out. I think he put a heart barrel on it. The only mistake we made was that he thought I said 1 in 12 twist, and he put a 1 in 12 twist on this 6mm. So I'm back to shooting bullets lighter than 100 grain, but it hasn't slowed me down any. I mean, this shoots 70, 55, 58 grain bullets, but I can shoot up to 80, 85 grain bullets, and I found that whitetail deer will tip over just fine with a 75 to 85 grain bullet. But these days, everyone wants to shoot the really long, high ballistics coefficient bullets with the long tapered boat tails. This rifle is not going to handle it. So I'm thinking of rebarreling it once again, perhaps to either the Creedmoor or the 6XC. Still going to determine it. But before I do that, I want to shoot up my old hand loads. And I've got a bunch of them, as you can see right here. So I'm going to have some fun and just probably do my last fling with the 6mm Remington before this thing changes. Or maybe it'll shoot so well I'll fall in love again and keep it. Yeah, only an inch off of where I was aiming, but we're not getting a chronograph reading. Getting a little too dark out to read. I've got these rated at 3,900 feet per second. So I'll probably wait till morning to shoot some more just because I want to read the velocity, and I'm not getting a reading here. Holes are almost touching. No reading on the chronograph. So I'll knock off and we'll do it again tomorrow. See what kind of readings I can get, but yeah, that's sure nice to see. 2 touching holes, just a little gap between the two, but this usually shoots 3/4 inch down to a 1/2 inch. It's sweet. I think I'm gonna fall in love again. I'm gonna have a 6mm. Well, we've got some good light this morning to finish this little project with the 6mm Remington Model 70. I've taken the sling off because ideally you want your rifle to slide straight in the bags. You don't want things dragging. So we've got that ready to go. Now I've put a target out, taken the one down from last night, put up a new grid target. Of course, anytime you're shooting a floppy box like this, there's not a good way to test for supreme accuracy. This is just general, but I mean, if the wind blows a little bit like that, it's obviously going to screw it up. But we got a pretty calm day here, and this will give us a good idea of what we've got. Now I'm going to set up a camera to record the target getting hit. In relation to the bench, I need to be angled about like that. Cool. And got the chronograph going. Good sunlight for that. So we ought to be able to get some pretty good target work done here. Yeah, that should work. All right, I've got my loophole cranked up to 10 power. We're just gonna see what we can do. Now these are 58 grain VMAX. Great little load that I've been using for coyote hunting primarily. And it's a good varmint load. Taking a couple of bobcats with it, I think. And as according to this box, back when I loaded these up, they were doing 3,900 feet per second, which is pretty much screaming. But that's just what you want. Okay. Let's just go for the center bullseye. All right, nice. Yeah, just a 1/2 inch high and 1 inch to the left. So I'm gonna make some quick adjustments on my scope, and then we'll see what we can do. Okay. Brought it over to the right. 4 clicks, that should move me 1 inch. And just a couple clicks up, because I always like to be high at 100. Extends my range. See what sort of a group we can get. Nice. Right in there. This thing usually shoots. I've worked up a lot of loads over the years with this. And with this 58 grain VMAX load, I'm usually shooting 3/4 of an inch group down to half, a little less. Yeah, that's another one right in there at about a half, it looks like. And I've had various scopes on this too. I really like this. Loopholes are one of my favorites, and I don't like to go too crazy with my scope power. 3.5 to 10 here's a beauty on a VX3. Don't need a huge objective up front, and that's what I've got here. But the rifle has really been good to me over the years. I've taken whitetails and pronghorn and coyotes and such, but just starting to get that itch for a longer bullet. Let this cool for a bit, and then we'll try another load I've got worked up here. This one, I'm really not even sure what it is. The box is telling me it's a 70 grain Nosler, but I can see it's a green tipped bullet, and that's a Sierra. So I think these are 75 or 80 grain Sierras. I'll have to double check my records upstairs, but just be curious to see how well they shoot and how fast they go. Now that chronograph is saying this last load went about 3,933 feet per second. I saw a flash up to 55 or 56. We'll go back and review that, but that is fast, folks. Of course, it's a light bullet, but that 6mm can really do the job. You know, while we're waiting for that barrel to cool down a little bit, I forgot to mention there was one other 24 caliber in the 20th century, right in the middle. Now, I think it was around the late 60s, maybe 67 or 68, Roy Weatherby came out with a 240 Weatherby Magnum. And of course, like all the Weatherbys, it was on a belted case. Not sure exactly which one he used. It's not the big fat one that he used on the 300s and the 270s and such. But that'll add about 200 feet per second more than the 6mm, about 300 feet per second more than the 243. So that's really the champion in speed for the 24 calibers, including the new 6 Creedmoor. The 6 Creedmoor is about like the 243, so the 6mm Remington even beats that. All right, let's make sure we've got the right ammunition in here. We'll get the last one of these out and try these Sierras. Got a little bit of wind today that's might blow me off a half inch or so depending on the gusts. Yeah, pushing me left a smidgen. Looks like I'm getting a little over 3,500 feet per second with these. Of course, the barrel's warming up a bit now. Yeah, it looks like another tight little group. That's what this rifle pretty much always shoots. So we'll go check the target and then we'll come back, and then I've got to decide. Am I going to keep this 6mm Remington barrel on here with its slow twist barrel, or should I have it rebarreled? And I would sure like your advice on this one, folks. What do you think I ought to do with this guy? I mean, it sure does the job for what it has, but I just can't shoot those new long bullets, and I'd like to give those a try. So, gotta scratch my head, think about it for a while, but let's check that target, review the velocities, and see what we've got. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with this. High speed, 3,956. It was a duplicate, so that means two shots were the same. The low speed was 3,933. Again, duplicate. So I was registering 3,900 feet per second back in March of 2004. And it's much warmer today probably, so that's why we've got our velocity boosted a little bit. And it could be the chronograph. This is different than the one I used back then. These inexpensive chronographs, by the way, are a great way to get started. I think I picked this one up from Brownells for about 120 bucks or something. You know, they're not going to get the absolute precision with one that's this short. The longer between the light traps, the more distance between them, the better. But for simplicity and setting things up just to get started, you can do darn well with these, and they'll do fine giving you probably within 10 feet per second of real velocity. Unless you're shooting out at 1,000 yards or something where that really starts to make a difference, there's really nothing to worry about. So I'm going to delete that and delete the whole string, and we'll see if we do better the next time. Well, here's the target. Then my first shot was here, made my adjustment. There's my little 3-shot group, about a 1/2 inch. And then I switched from that 58 grain Hornady bullet to this Sierra, which I think is a 70 or 75, but I'm not really sure. But still, we got a nice little group. First shot, second 2, or maybe it was 1, 2, and then 3, but either way, another 3/4 inch group. That's pretty consistent for this rifle as I remember it over the years. It's just pretty hard that it does not shoot to that level of accuracy until I put about a 90 grain or heavier bullet in it. And then they actually land looking like eggs. They're oblong. That tells you they're definitely not being stabilized. So 1 in 12 twist, great with 55 to 80, 85 grain bullets. You start getting the long ones and you're in trouble. Well, there we have it. As you can see, this little 6mm shoots pretty tight groups, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. So the puzzling part for me now, guys, is do I get this thing rebarreled? I'm really torn. At first I thought, you know, I just really need to get a modern cartridge in there, but this one works so well. Of course, I can always save the barrel and put it back on if I want. That's another good option, but it does cost money. So I'd like to get your opinions. If you don't mind, write in or let us know what you think. Go to ronspomeroutdoors.com and leave a comment there as well. But I'm really struggling with this one. Do I get an XC, 6mm XC, or a Creedmoor, or stick with this guy? Your advice would really be appreciated. I'm Ron Spomer, reminding you to hunt honest, shoot straight.